All right, so this is the Nothing Phone 3. It's transparent, it's bold maybe, and it's trying to stand out in the world of black or colorful rectangles. But this time, it's not just about the lights. It's about smarter software, better cameras, and a serious push into flagship territory, all while looking like nothing else out there. So what is new? Nothing's refined the design, still transparent and flashy with Glyph lights, although this time they're actually useful. So there are customized notifications, ringtones with lighting patterns, and even basic controls without touching the screen, all within this rounded mini screen at the back here. They call it the Glyph Matrix display. It's different, but not just for the sake of being different. So let's talk what's underneath the hood. You're getting a Snapdragon 8S Gen 4, a smoother 6.67-inch flexible AMOLED display, and finally, just finally, a camera system that holds its own in this price range. Software-wise, still very clean, fast and minimal. This is still stock Android with a sprinkle of style. But here's the big question. The Nothing Phone 3 this year is categorized as a flagship, but is it really a flagship killer? Let's find out. The design this time around, let's be honest, probably draws you into liking it or perhaps not. But it's keeping that signature transparent back this time around. However, feels a bit more refined and a bit messy all at the same time, especially with the placements of its lens. You'd mistaken the Glyph Matrix display for another big lens, but it's not. To me, it looks all over the place. Materials, however, sturdier. The frame have a far more premium feel, and the Glyph interface is actually smarter than before, not just flashy. You can set different light patterns for different contexts or apps and even use it as a countdown timer or a battery bar, or simply to look at the time or play a bottle game by default. All by pressing this haptic feedback with no indicator or whatsoever button at the back here. Like if I don't go through the manual or watch any reviews, I would probably not even know that this is an actual button you can press. Turning the phone over, you're greeted with a 6.67-inch flexible AMOLED 120Hz super smooth display. Not the absolute brightest panel out there, but it is looking super sharp, vibrant, and definitely responsive. Bezels look really thin with a punch hole right dead center. No curvy corners on the display, just clean and minimalist. But this phone actually feels thick and wide on hands. It made me feel like it's actually bigger than my iPhone 15 Pro Max. Now on the side here, you get the Essential button, which gives you the function to save whatever you see on screen for later reference. To me, the Snapdragon 8S Gen 4 with up to 16 gig plus 2 GB of RAM is snappy for day-to-day use. Apps launches quick, multitasking is good, and the scrolls are definitely buttery smooth as well. Of course, unless you're super hardcore at gaming or benchmarking just for fun, you don't actually feel the difference, although I had a pretty good time playing Call of Duty with it on a controller. Okay, so the camera department is something that I really want to talk about. The Nothing Phone 3 seems to step things up a little. Triple 50 megapixel sensors on main, ultra wide, and front, better image processing, and finally, a decent low light performance. There's also a periscope lens made available now with 3 times optical zoom. Daylight photos are looking sharp, color science has improved, and portrait mode doesn't look half as bad. It's definitely not the most flagship level, but judging from these photos I've taken with the phone, I'd say it's improved by quite a bit, especially digging the different presets you can now create and add later on. Simply import them in by using QR codes. If you can find any QR codes that you can add in to the phone, that will do too. To me, I feel like the QR code is finally being put to good use at this area. I managed to get some Fujifilm light presets in from Nothing community. The color science works sometimes and doesn't at times. Now, one thing that is sort of useful with the Glyph matrix is probably the mirror feature. So what's happening here is that when you turn it on from the rear button, it acts as a mirror for selfies or wefis using the rear cameras. It's a Glyph matrix style, so everything is shown in 8-bit format. Not very clear, but at least you're framing your compositions right. Now the battery life is solid. You're getting a 5150 milliamp battery with 65 watt fast charging. It is all good so far except for only a 15 watt wireless charging this time. Now if I were to compare just how aggressive the China phones are advancing so much into their battery capabilities, it would be great to see Nothing catching up. Of course, I have always liked Nothing OS for its clean, no bloat software is included right out of the box, smooth animations, and some really clever features that feel purposeful. It's like if Android had a minimalist but cool theme pre-installed. Nothing OS 3.5 here is right out of the box and very future-proof and sustainable with 5 years of major OS updates, 7 years of security patches. Nothing also did mention that the Android 16 and Nothing OS 4.0 is scheduled for release in Q3 later this year. Yay! The Nothing Phone 3 is priced starting from Ringgit Malaysia 3,299 Ringgit and 3,799 Ringgit for the highest spec right here. I think that the Nothing Phone 3 can definitely be on par with other flagships in the market. Looks can be deceiving with this design, but if you can get used to not being a very OCD person with proper symmetrical designs, this might just be a keeper for you after all. That's all for today's review. I'll see you guys in the next one. Nothing.